Wonderful. In that case, we will call to order the Town of Lake Lure regular Town Council meeting Tuesday, April the 13th. Having had an opportunity to look at the agenda, and we do have one item that needs to be moved, so I will need a motion for that. We need to move item G on the consent agenda to new business. Are there any other edits or corrections to the agenda? Then do I hear a motion to move item G on the consent agenda to new business?
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda with item G from consent being moved to new business.
Wonderful. Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Bryant will second.
All in favor, please state your name when you vote.
Bryant, aye.
Diorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
The agenda stands adopted as edited. We'll move on then, and this is going to be a lengthy meeting tonight. And so just to let anyone from the public who is hearing, we will be going into a closed session very shortly, which will last probably until about 6:30, and then we will have a closed session at the end of the meeting. So Michelle Jolly will be orchestrating that, and you will be moved in or out as we go in or out of the closed session. For the mayor's communication, just a couple of things. I would just like to thank Laura Carigi, our communication specialist, for all the work that she has done on grant writing. That is such an important effort for us now as we look for money to pay for these incredible infrastructure projects that we have facing us. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of expertise, a lot of effort, and most of all, a lot of persistence. So I would like to thank Laura so much for that. We appreciate so much what you do for us and for every department. I'd also like to thank all of the community who gathered together today and look wonderful. We look like prison gangs on Boys Camp Road who gathered together to pick up trash on Boys Camp Road. Commissioner Bryant spearheaded the lower Boys Camp Road effort, and Maureen Bay led the upper team, the team on the upper section of Boys Camp Road. Special thanks to Maureen Bay and her husband for gathering together all the troops to do this. And I personally would like to attest to the fact that the beer industry is not suffering in Lake Lure. We can attest to that by all the cans we picked up in the ditches. So I also would like to say one other thing. Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending a dedication ceremony for Walter Dalton at the Kiwanis Park in Rutherfordton. Walter Dalton was our past lieutenant governor and senator for many, many years. And of course, as we remember him lately, the president of Isothermal College. A portion of 74 was dedicated to him to thank him for all the years of his service to Rutherford County. And we all join in that. We appreciate so much what he has done. We will now move into closed session. Do I hear a motion to move into closed session?
I'll move that we move into closed session in accordance with GS 143-318.11A6 for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that. Commissioner Bryant.
All in favor?
Commissioner Bryant, aye.
Diorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
Then we have a unanimous vote to go into closed session. Michelle will give you a few minutes to make sure that only those people who need to be in the closed session are there. Just let us know when you're ready.
I'm just checking on one more person that has called in with the town hall number. I'm not sure who that is.
Okay.
Amy is checking with Sam.
All righty. A remote meeting. That is a function of our doing a remote meeting because of COVID. We have here a request from David and Marcia Baker to rezone property located at Memorial Highway, parcel number 219390 from CG Commercial General to R-1 Residential. I'm going to defer either to Mr. Baldwin or to Mr. Mitchell Anderson if he is here, and then we later will of course hear from either and or David and Marcia Baker or any member of the public who wishes to speak. Shannon, do you want to lead this off, or is Mitchell here with us?
I will defer to Mitchell.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Michelle, are you able to share the packet material starting with attachment B, the staff report? Mr. and Mr. Baker have submitted a request to rezone a 0.05 acre parcel from commercial general to R1 residential district. As stated, the parcel is located at off Memorial Highway, parcel number 219390. Can you go down to attachment B, Michelle? Thank you. One more page. Thank you, Michelle. As shown on the current zoning map, this parcel is zoned commercial general. Below that map is the future land use map, and the future land use map indicates this parcel as future residential. When determining the rezoning of this parcel, it's best to consider the overall impact of a rezoning on the community and in that area, and to not take into consideration the applicant's individual request for the rezoning. As such, this matter went in front of the Zoning and Planning Board for review. They reviewed items such as the parcel dimensions and the minimal dimensional requirements for the R1 and CG zoning district. They also reviewed the future and current potential uses of the R1 and CG zoning district. And they recommended in attachment C that the rezoning request be denied as the property rezoning the property to residential will disconnect the adjoining properties that are currently zoned commercial general, and they wanted to remain consistent with prior zoning action, and that's found in attachment C. Notice was sent to the adjoining property owners and to the property owner. Public notice was also posted on the newspaper 2 Fridays before this hearing, and public notice was also posted on the property that the rezoning was in question. Do you guys have any specific questions about the rezoning request?
I have a question for, I guess maybe it should be directed to the town attorney. Would there be, if the goal of the property owner is to keep this residential and not allow any commercial to be put there, would they be, as long as they own it, that's not an issue. I guess they can do what they want to with it and don't let anything there that they don't want. But if they sold it, could they restrict the deed to accomplish what they're after?
Probably, yeah. They could put a restriction on it or something of that nature. I think, if I understand your question correctly. And certainly any future owner could also petition the town for a rezoning to back to what it was or something different. If deed restrictions are more restrictive than the zoning restrictions or as restrictive, don't they prevail? Well, they both prevail, but the town's zoning authority isn't curtailed or limited by, for instance, HOAs or deed restrictions and that sort of thing. We don't really, as the town, don't really look at to that. We're focused on it. We just focus on what the zoning and the uses are. Right, I understand that, but my question is, if you're talking about 5/10 of an acre, is that right? Yes. 5/10 of an acre. And if the owner of that property, and if the day comes that they dispose of it, if they put in the deed that the property can only be used for whatever, or it has to be a park, or nothing can be built on it. Can't that deed restriction keep that property from being built on? Yes. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, any other questions for Mr. Anderson? For Mr. Morgan? Then we are, if Mr. David and or Marcia Baker are present, would they like an opportunity to speak?
Yes, I would, please.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I've made some notes, and I apologize, but this issue is very important to us, and I'll be reading my notes to make sure I cover everything properly.
Always a good idea.
Okay. As property owners, we agree with the 2007 and the 2027 comprehensive plan, which recommends our property be zoned R1, not CG. We know a tremendous amount of community time and taxpayer money went into the developing of the 2007 plan that has been adopted by the town leaders and the community. We are willing property owners to allow the town council to rezone our property to be in lockstep with the 2007 comprehensive plan. At the last town council meeting regarding our next door neighbors' request for zoning changes, William Morgan made some statements to the board. If I understand his comments, he stated that if the town council votes to change zoning on a property that is different from what the 2007 plan shows, then that will effectively change the 2007 plan. If that is correct, then if the town council votes not to rezone our property to R1, that would be a change to the 2007 plan. Mr. Morgan, am I correct with that?
I agree with the first statement that if the council makes a rezoning decision that is currently inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, that it is effectively changes it. I don't know that logic extends to denying a rezoning request. I don't think that necessarily changes the plan. The statute doesn't speak to that.
I'm not sure I understand the difference between the 2007 plan showing our property being R1 or recommending our property be R1, and if it's not rezoned R1, is that not the same thing as changing the 2007 plan? I'm not sure I understand the difference in that or with the zoning request of our neighbor's property.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that, I mean, there could be, I mean, the comprehensive plan is certainly a big factor that is required by statute to be taken into consideration, but it's not the only factor. And the law says that if it's rezoned to something that is not reflected or supported in the comprehensive plan, that is effectively a change to the plan that is taken into consideration next time the plan is revisited and updated. But I just don't think that the reverse is automatic, or that should the rezoning request be denied to and not change it to what the current comprehensive plan says, I don't think that's a change to the plan. But that's something that's, it's a good question, and I see your logic. I just don't know. I don't know that that's the same. I don't think it's automatically a change to the plan in the same way that the rezoning request that was recently denied, had that been allowed, that would have been a change to the plan.
Okay.
I've never really considered that question, although I do see the logic in your argument.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little confused if it's not the same, but let me go further if I can.
Sure.
I know an issue that has come up with the Zoning and Planning Board is spot zoning. And I understand the spot zoning issue, but I feel the very small portion of our neighbor's property to the south that's approximately 41 feet was mapped incorrectly many years ago. If it was not an error, then why is only a very small fraction of their property zoned commercial general and the vast majority of their property zoned R1? It also doesn't make sense to us that a business can operate on a 41-foot strip of property that is adjacent to us, nor does it make any more sense to us that a business can operate on our 55 feet of property. I don't feel that an obvious zoning error should affect our request to change the zoning on our property. I feel like the 2007 comprehensive plan is correct and we should follow it. We paid a lot of money for it, and we've all agreed through all the different meetings that went on during that period of time that that was something we would adopt. And I'm just confused by that. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All righty. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners or from Mr. Morgan for Mr. Baker? Or any more observations?
Madam Mayor, when this was the Lake Lure Dam Marina, was the allocation of this land that we're talking about now in a different, it was divided differently when it was the Lake Lure Dam Marina? You know, over the course of the last 90 years, there have been a lot of changes, but at one point it was mostly commercial. And there's a lot of, there's some personal attachments for the family who helped found the Lake Lure Dam Marina, but does some of that come into play with this between the comprehensive plan and the current deed structure? And I think that's one of the things that I'm struggling with, because that the red line in attachment, I think it's B, the page 2 of that, it extends a lot of pieces, including what currently is a restaurant, which is Point of View Restaurant, on, you know, more than 2 or 3 pieces of land, which used to be log cabin rentals way back in the wind, and the Lake Lure Dam Marina is there as well. Is some of this attached to an older deed plot that is causing some of these issues? And that's what I'm trying to understand based on my knowledge of the history of that particular piece of property at that intersection.
Now, Mitchell, can you add anything to the, are you available to answer that question, or Mr. Morgan, either one?
So I don't know the previous plat history in this area, and I don't know the way that these property lines laid prior to their current outline. However, I do want to reiterate that the rezoning should be determined based on the future use of the land, not specifically what has occurred in the past or what the desires are of the current property owner. So it has to be based on the permitted and conditional uses within the commercial general zoning district. I do also want to bring up what the Zoning and Planning Board discussed, and they discussed that because there is commercial in that area, it is a continuous zoned commercial district, that they did not want to break up that commercial district. And by rezoning, this parcel would break up the smaller chunk further south. But I don't have any information on the history of why the parcels were laid out the way that they are.
So Mitchell, Commissioner Kilby, a question. Could it be that a mistake was made back when the 2007 comprehensive plan was adopted and put into place, that the research wasn't done correctly, and the point that the Bakers raised is a valid point?
I could speculate that parcel lines have likely shifted over the years. That's normally the cause of a split zone parcel. However, split zone parcels that we're referring to the south, they do occur sometimes, and it could be something as simple as technology wasn't as good for that type of mapping. But these are speculations, and I do not know why they were zoned this manner.
And I guess I would ask our town attorney, Mr. Morgan, do you feel like it's something that should be some more research done on before we get into making a decision based on the points that the Bakers have brought up?
I mean, if it was a mapping, if it was a mapping error, that would be something the council would need to know about. But I mean, usually, I mean, I've been involved in lawsuits over mapping errors before, and how do you change it back and that sort of thing. And it would also, whatever the map says is what it is until the council changes it. even if you saw that it was an error made, it wouldn't automatically change it, or a staff member couldn't just scratch through it and write what it was before. That was what was an issue in our case. So you're bound right now by what the officially adopted map says. Whether or not it was a true error, you know, there might be a way to determine that. I don't know, but right now it's zone is shown on the map. And people have a right to rely on the map too when purchasing property and making decisions. So if it wasn't there, it was still adopted on the official map last time the map was readopted. So error could have played a role in it, I guess, but that has happened before. But right now, the officially adopted map is the way it's zoned, because it was adopted indicating it as a split zone lot.
Okay. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for either Mr. Anderson or Mr. Morgan or the Bakers?
Madam Mayor, I have a question. So Bakers bought the property as commercial, right? And want to shift it to residential. So how does that help the town? That's for
and you are asking that of whom?
The Bakers.
The Bakers. Mr. or Mrs. Baker?
I'll try to address that. We feel like the 2007 plan is the map to the future for the town of Lake Lure, for quality growth. We feel like there was an error made at one point in time that split zoned our property, the property adjacent to us to the south. That's the only explanation I can give you as to why that's split zoned. The issue with the zoning board has always been they don't like, as well as Mitchell, and the staff, they don't like split zone properties, and I understand that. When does that get corrected? When do we go back and go, the majority of the property is zoned this, but the little teeny tiny part is commercial? We're saying in our property, yes, we bought it as commercial. We have no plans to use it as commercial. We think it's more in keeping with the code that it be residential. I think at some point, the board has to look at the split zoning piece next to us. If the only reason for not rezoning our property residential is because there's a 41 strip of property on the other side of us that's commercial, at some point, something seems like it needs to be changed or corrected if an error was made. And I don't know the answer, Dave. I'm just saying, how does it benefit the town for our property to be commercial or residential? Wouldn't it be more beneficial for ours to be residential and be in keeping with the majority of the property on that cove past our property?
That's debatable because, well, first of all, I took a look at the Draper plan, the original plan from 1927. That whole corridor has always been commercial, all right, from day one. So at some point, it had shifted over, and all the way from the dam, and now we're taking a look at even further down the line to make it more commercial. There's a real shortage of commercial property on Lake Lure. Our commercial tax base is down to Parade Rest. There isn't a whole lot of it. And we have some big bills ahead of us. We have over $100 million in liabilities. So I understand your situation. I understand the position that you're in right now, but for the long-term approach, I'm not so sure putting a residential property in between two commercial properties is not going to create huge problems in the future. And I'm not so sure it's in the interest of Lake Lure to do that. So, while you're there, you can do whatever you want with the property, right? You can treat it any way you want. But, 50 years from now, what are we going to be looking like there, and how are we going to pay our bills? That's kind of what I'm looking at.
How does it help the town to keep our property as commercial financially for the town. That's what I'm not understanding today.
It's not you, all right? I mean, you're gonna continue to do what you want to do on your property, paying taxes like you have been. There's no discussion with that. But what happens after you? Okay, so the next somebody comes in and buys a property, they're going to buy a residential property in between two commercial properties. Is that what they're going to do there?
Well, I think what my wife wants me to say, which is what is in process right now, the property that we're talking about rezoning, as well as our property that's the two cottages across from Point of View Restaurant that we own, we are moving them into an irrevocable family trust. And we will never be using that property as commercial, nor will any heirs. And we're funding the trust so that it can be supported for tax base payments and maintenance. So long term, we don't have a problem with the zoning issue. We have a problem with more of that cove turning into commercial property. And I know that y'all have turned down the request for zoning for a year, but a year from now, there might be more. And the property that we purchased is going to be affected by what happens to future zoning on the other side of us. And we're concerned about that.
And with all due respect, sir, the property that is attached to the property next to us, the residential part, borders Dockside Road. From Dockside Road to Charlotte Drive, that is not commercial.
Right.
That is residential. And I would also like to add that I realize there's a golf course on the other side of that and the fire department, which is not objectionable. But having a golf course adjoining a residential property is vastly different from being able to have any kind of business. In fact, the Masters was this past weekend. That golf course is in a very exclusive community, as are many golf courses in this nation. It's not the same thing as typical business. And I hope you recognize that. And I appreciate you listening to my comments.
No, Marsha, I get that. But what makes you think it's going to be a golf course your whole life?
I do not know that. Yeah, but I'm saying that's it's a totally different thing. It may change to something else.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
So I would say Route 64 is a business. Matter of fact, most of the properties along Route 64, not Dockside. I get Dockside, it's residential, starting at Dockside all the way to Charlotte. But Route 64 has been commercial, always has been. And I'm trying to adjudicate in my mind why it's a good idea to change commercial property along 64 to residential.
Well, with all due respect to you again, sir, once you pass the split between 64 and Highway 9, there are a large amount of property through there that's residential until you get to the area near the beach.
There's commercial along there too, and there's mixed use along 64 corridor.
Yes, sir, but I would say the majority is residential.
Okay, thank you. You answered the question.
Any other questions from any other commissioners for the Bakers or for Mr. Morgan or for Mitchell? All right, if there's no other conversation now, we are required to give at least 24 hours after this public hearing for any written publication to be submitted. So we will schedule that at least 24 hours from now. We thank you, Marsha. and David Baker for joining a meeting and sharing your conversation with us and your position.
Hey, Mayor,
yes.
Can I just interject something? You might want to make sure, or maybe you already know this. If so, I apologize. But if there's anyone else present.
Yeah, is there anyone else present who would like to speak to this issue? I don't hear anyone. Michelle, are you aware of anyone? Thank you for reminding me of that, Mr. Morgan.
I don't have any comments.
All right, no comments at this point, but we are required to give 24 hours. So we will resume this public hearing then in at least 24 hours. Well, I don't know the exact date right now, but we will certainly let you know.
If the board at some point before the meeting is over determines what date you want to conclude this matter, you can, you know, it's like we did before, or we have done before on occasion. You can adjourn the meeting to a date and time certain without having to read notice and everything.
Right, and we can either determine that date now. If Michelle, if you have some date, I just don't know if people are equipped right now to schedule that date. Or had you given any thought to that, Michelle, or to Mitchell, when that meeting might be adjourned until?
On April 28th, there is a workshop at 8:30 in the morning. It can't be part of that meeting, but it could be recessed till after the workshop at a given time. That's a Wednesday, April 28th.
Would it make more sense to do it at our next regularly scheduled town council meeting? I don't know that there's a real sense of urgency.
We can either do it on the 28th, which is our working meeting, right after that, assuming we won't all be together, or it could be at our next council meeting. Either one is. Did any of the commissioners have an opinion, or Mr. Morgan? Do you? It sort of depends too on when you might be available.
There's certainly nothing wrong with concluding it at the next regularly scheduled meeting if that's the pleasure of the board. That's the way that several jurisdictions that I know of are doing these, you know, given the new 24-hour requirement. You can conclude it at any time. I mean, you can wait till then. But what's the workshop meeting?
I believe it's on the 28th, is it not, Mitchell? Is that, and when you said it was Wednesday, the 28th?
I believe it's the 28th. Yes, it is. And then the next meeting is May 11th.
Well, so the options are we can either, you know, postpone it until April 28th, and then we are able to adjourn this town council meeting, and then we would be able to open our regular town council meeting on May the 11th. Or we cannot adjourn this town council meeting and just continue it on until May the 11th.
My suggestion is to do it at the next regularly scheduled council meeting on May the 11th.
Any conversation on that? So this meeting will just stay open then until the next meeting on May the 11th. Correct?
No, May the 11th will be a new meeting, but this would be on the agenda.
You just want to open it up again on the new agenda for May the 11th.
Unless there's a reason not to, or to do it a different way. William, what do you suggest?
Has the public hearing been closed?
No.
I know that we have to take written comments, but
it has not been closed.
Mitchell, is it your understanding that I've seen this done both ways under this new statute, that the public hearing is closed and then it's just a matter of the vote at that point when after the 24 hours or more goes by?
So I'm in the same situation that I've heard comment on both sides, and the only logic I came up with is that if you close the public comment, how can you take into consideration written public comment after if the public comment section is closed? That would be my only concern, but I don't know the legal.
Yeah, and the statute reads, you know, you can't vote until at least 24 hours after the hearing's closed. So I see what you're saying, and I've considered that myself, and I've seen it done both ways. But I think the best thing to do would be then, especially if it's not closed, and in order not to have to re-advertise and so forth, that that tonight's meeting or consideration of this matter be continued to May 11th at 5 p.m. So that you don't, I mean, it's not a huge deal to re-advertise it, but it's simpler to do it that way. A motion to at the end of this meeting to continue the meeting to May 11th, or continue the public hearing to May 11th, 2021 at 5 p.m. at Town Hall. Then take this matter up first, and then open your new agenda, your new meeting. Does that make sense?
It does. Is there a consensus on that? So at the end of this meeting, we'll simply make a motion to continue this public hearing on at our May 11th meeting.
Correct.
And we'll do it first, and then we'll close that meeting, right? And then we'll begin our regular town council meeting.
Correct.
Is everybody in accordance with that?
Yes.
I agree. Commissioner Bryant.
All right, then that is what we will do. So this will be, we'll make that motion at the end of our town council meeting here. Mr. and Ms. Baker, do you understand that line of thought there?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it very much. So we will continue this conversation then on May the 11th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that that's all then on our public hearing. We will move on to our next item on our agenda, which is the town manager's communication. We are now at 7:30. Is there any wish on any part of the council to recess for 5 minutes or so? We've been out this for about 2.5 hours and we have quite a ways to go. Would that be amenable, or would you rather just continue on?
Nobody needs to stop. I say we continue.
That's fine with me. That works fine with me. Then we'll continue on to item number 6, which is the town manager communications. Shannon?
Yes, ma'am. So I think in your packet, you have a fairly thorough report from the town manager as well as the department heads.
Yes. Yes.
I'm getting an echo. Sorry. And so the only thing I would add is that the mayor has already mentioned it, is that we have a verbal that we secured a grant for the design of our reservoir drain or the sewer access valve. And so we hope to have official word in the next few weeks and a document that we can sign so that we can launch that process. Once we have the document back from FEMA that we sign, then we are free to sign the document with Schnabel so that we can begin the design. So we've been waiting for this a long time. So glad to be there. I think that's really the only thing, Madam Mayor, I wanted to report.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a comprehensive report. I'm sure everyone's had an opportunity to read that in their packet. We will move on then to the council liaison reports and comments. We'll start with Commissioner Diorio.
Good news, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. UAB briefed out the sewer policy, and next steps are to, and it'll come up for a vote later tonight, to accept the recommendations. All we're doing is saying that we accept what they have briefed out. That needs to be turned into an ordinance, go through a legal review, and will become one of our key documents to communicate what the policy will be to the citizens of Lake Lure within a couple of months. So it's on track, and that's been the focus of the UAB, and that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Kilby?
In regards to Lake Advisory Board did meet via Zoom. The hot topic was wake surfing behind the boats. Was a lot of input from public on that, and that is being researched now, and further information is being gathered, and we will be readdressing that at the next meeting of LAB, and hopefully Marine Commission as well.
All right, thank you. Anything from the ABC?
Yes, from the ABC board did meet. Zoom was available. The ABC board has hired a new ABC board manager, ABC store manager, and the determination was made that at the current time they will not appoint an assistant manager, that we will give a little bit of time for the dust to settle and see how things are going, and reassess what the need is for staffing to meet the public need, and that will be addressed by the time we have the next board meeting. Also, the ABC board is back to full business, open store, no more, much to a lot of people's chagrin, not curb service anymore available at the ABC store. That really put a strain on staff doing that, and so with the conditions the way they are, the determination was made to go back to full service at the ABC store. That's my reports, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Moore.
The Zoning and Planning Board met on Tuesday, March 16th, and considered a request from Robert Rothrock for a conditional use permit to an existing commercial building. He wants to open a vehicle rental service, and it's in the old strip mall where the bank used to be, up near the near where the school used to be, and that was approved. The let's see, and then there was they heard the zoning appeal of the Bakers, which we just reviewed, and there was an update from Sarah Kotkin, who on our 160D requirements, that's the changes we're having to make to some of our zoning regulations. A lot of it's just textual, but it's a new standard that we have to mold our system to meet. And we've got an update on that from her. We need to have all that finished by July 1st, and Mitchell tells us all that we're on track with that. Jonathan Hinkle resigned from the board. That was his last meeting, so we later this evening we'll hopefully be appointing a replacement for his slot on the board. And the next meeting is Tuesday, April 13th. That's next Tuesday coming, a week from today, at 9:30.
There you go. We appreciate that. Commissioner Bryant.
Good evening. I was not present at the last BOA meeting, but LSAB did not meet. I do not have meeting minutes from the BOA, so I may have to report those at the next meeting. The Parks and Recreation group did meet, and we've had a lot of movement. There are some grants that are moving along for Boys Camp Road. for that location on May 6th. The deadline is going to come through for Buffalo Creek Park, Weed Patch Mountain, and the Trail to Eagle Rock. Dana Bradley is working on those as of right now. The Flower Bridge had a very successful fundraising effort through MoBay and all the volunteers' efforts with more than a $6,500 net profit on their full piece of that. Oiling of the eggs has gone underway, and they had about 27 nests that they were able to isolate and find for eggs for the Canadian geese. They do not leave town anymore. They have become permanent residents. So it is there is a sense of importance to find some ways to monitor and transition and find ways to limit number of those external animals in our town. All of our trail counters are extremely high right now. Everybody in the gorge is extremely busy. You have a lot of people who are really flocking to our area this early in the season. In my experience, April and May can be a little quieter before Memorial Day, but it's very different post-COVID as we're coming into this. So Boys Camp Road had a cleanup. We had more than 25 bags of trash that were picked up today, and we had a ton of wonderful volunteers. Mr. and Mrs. Mo and Bill Bay and Dana Bradley were very instrumental in that as well. Things for the Partners Grant on the Boys Camp Road property are still in process, as well as several others. So there's a lot of pieces in transition in Parks and Rec at this time, and that's all that I have.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bryant.
Yes, ma'am.
And that concludes our council liaison reports. We are now at our public comment section. If you would like to speak on topics other than those being discussed during a public hearing, please unmute your mic, introduce yourself by stating your name and residency or business and what you would like to talk about. Please keep comments at 5 minutes or less. Michelle, to your knowledge, is there anyone who's indicated that they wish to speak? I do not hear anyone, so I'm going to assume that there is no one from the public who wishes to speak. We always welcome your comments, of course. We'll then move on to our next section, which is the consent agenda. Just to remind you, before we make a motion to approve this, we have moved item number G, budget amendment number 305, wastewater treatment plant digester has been moved to new business. It will be item number F on the new business. So remembering that, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as edited?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as edited.
Is there a second?
Yorio seconds.
All in favor?
Bryant, aye.
Yorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
Thank you. Then the consent agenda is approved as edited. The next item is unfinished business, but we have no items. We'll move on to new business. The first item is the approval of the Labella Engineering Task Order number 8, the wastewater treatment plant digester project. I believe Maurice Walsh is here with us tonight, is he not?
I believe he is.
Yes, I am.
All righty. Who is going to speak to this item? Is that you, Maurice, or Shannon, you would like to address it?
Just briefly, if I may, Madam Mayor. There are some operational issues with the current wastewater treatment plant that are directly related to the current digester, which is in dilapidated condition. And so we're trying to find a quick way to replace that digester or modify that digester so that we can reduce our operating cost relative to hauling wet sludge. That is extremely expensive for us to do. We made an attempt to pull out the existing sludge and basically compress it so that we take the water out of it so that we could haul it dry at a reduced cost. We've done that. We're still having issues with sludge. And so now the next step is to modify or replace the digester at the wastewater treatment plant. So we've asked Labella to submit a proposal to begin that process. And so they've done that. That's in your packet. Since that submittal was made, we've had additional conversations with Labella about ways that we can get to the same place at a reduced cost. So that having been said, we think we can do that. So that having been said, I think the proposal you have in your packet would be considered to be withdrawn or obsolete at this point. That having been said, I think I would like Reese just to speak about some of the new approaches that we have just been brainstorming as of the last couple of days. So Reese, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shannon. So to fill in, last week we were asked to put a proposal together, and we made some assumptions to get it into the packet so you would have it by Thursday. And some of those assumptions were that we were dealing with Division of Water Infrastructure, that we were dealing with the Division of Water Resources, that we were having to go through the typical North Carolina procurement bidding processes. And so the packet that you have represents an effort of that nature. Now, in addition, we began reaching out to various contractors, manufacturers, and we reached out to the state to clarify any permitting that was required. The Asheville Regional Office conferred with the Raleigh Central Office, and they got back to us this morning that as long as we are not increasing the size of the tank or changing the process, there would be no permitting requirement. We could do it as a like-for-like replacement. They also recommended that we take a look at some types of rehabilitation. David Arrowood and I have both reached out, and we've gotten a response back that you can rehabilitate a steel tank, which would be much less costly than a replacement, and not deal with some of the issues that you run into when you try to take down an old tank and replace it. And so we are continuing to pursue that. There is a tank in South Carolina that is similar, that was rehabilitated, that we are asking permission to go and see. And this, in following this route, you wouldn't have to deal with the Division of Water Infrastructure and the SRF. You wouldn't have to deal with Division of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Resources, and depending on the cost to rehabilitate the tank, you may not have to deal with the formal or informal procurement mechanism. So I think the most cost-effective way is to pursue rehabilitation, which is what David and I are currently pursuing. So I would agree with Shannon that the proposal that I give you, I'd like to withdraw, and I don't think that's the best route for the town of Lakeland to take at this time. And Shannon, if you have anything else to add, please do.
What I have asked Reese to do is to send us a proposal as to what it would take for him to manage help us with this particular process at a considerable reduction in cost. So we'll wait and see where that comes to, but I think we found a much better, less expensive solution to this issue. So we'll wait for the next proposal, but it sounds like we can get moving on this pretty fast if rehabilitation, relining the existing digester is what we can do. So Reese will help us with that.
Shannon, if I could, for Reese, one of the concerns I have is that it's always been in the plan to replace that digester. If we rehabilitate it, for how long? Would it be serviceable as the new tank in our plan, in our long-range plan, or will we have to replace it later? So I guess the question is, when we rehabilitate it, how long will that go for?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Dior. So I don't know the exact answer to that because we haven't selected the coating yet, but my intention would be phase one always included replacing the tank. If the tank has been rehabilitated, then we can delay that replacement until the final phase of the project, which is plus 15 years out, and replace the existing tank and build the new digester along with it. And then any monies that we save in phase one, we can divert to the GLS to buy more pipe and mantles.
No, I get it. I'm just wondering, when you go take a look at that tank, see what the expectation is for service life on that rehabilitated tank.
If it's anything like the manhole products, you're looking at 20 to 25 years.
That's a good number. Thank you.
And just to add, and this is just magnitude, we were looking at to do a full tank replacement, some additional modifications, still not require engineering. We're probably looking at about $185,000. And the relining effort is going to be much, much, much less. We won't know till we have conversations, but we think we can get this done and get us where we need to be at a much better price.
I hope to have an idea sometime in the next week on that. Maybe even toward the end of this week, having some guys come up and look at our existing digester after we go look at the other one. But like Reese said, on their manholes, this one particular company, when they come out, they date stamp the material they put on and they guarantee it unconditionally for 10 years. But he said, that stuff has been in 20 and 25 years in places with no problem. So it might be something that could get by for a long time. It's possible. That's all I've got.
That'll pay for itself in a matter of 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
And if we combine that with sludge management, just for the benefit of the council, I mean, that digester is going to create a manageable sludge, but we still need to develop another process on top of that to get rid of it. But that digester gives us the fighting chance to make it very efficient to get rid of the sludge. And that's what this game is all about. So it's really just pushing the timeline forward, actually.
So we will explore the option that we just discussed with you, and we may have additional information to bring back for approval at your next meeting in May.
Perfect. All righty, we'll move on then to item number B, which is acceptance of the sewer policy recommendations from the Utility Advisory Board. I'll defer to you, Commissioner Diorio.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. It broke up, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Our next item is acceptance of the sewer policy recommendations from the Utility Advisory Board.
That's what I thought it was. Thank you. So UAB had briefed on that. I make a motion that we I make a motion that we accept the recommendations from the UAB concerning the sewer policy. And we hand that over to the town manager for further processing.
Do I hear a second or any discussion?
Commissioner Kilby, I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Commissioner Bryant, aye.
Diorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
Then it's unanimous that we accept the sewer policy recommendations from the Utility Advisory Board. And thank them and Commissioner Diorio for the inordinate amount of work they put into that. Item number C is Town of Lake Lure, Rutherford County Sewer Agreement discussion. Shannon, I'll defer to you if you're heading that up.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you. I'll try to be succinct. The county and the town entered into a sewer agreement in 1970. That agreement basically says that the town agrees to allow for Rutherford County to connect its collection system, and we're talking about the collection system in Chimney Rock Village. The town allowed that collection system to attach to ours, and the town also agreed basically to treat the sewage that the county would be sending to the town of Lake Lure. There were also some other items that were agreed to in that agreement, in that contract, that basically says that if in the event the county wants to transfer rights and responsibilities to a third party, that the town of Lake Lure then is to be part of that process, and that third party needs to agree to items that the town of Lake Lure basically would make sure that protect the interest of the town of Lake Lure. So that agreement, we have it, we've read it, we've shared that with DEQ. That has been sent to Chimney Rock Village. It's been sent to Rutherford County. Rutherford County is currently in talks with Chimney Rock Village to transfer rights and responsibilities to the existing collection system to the village. And so we attended a meeting where Chimney Rock Village was basically explaining to us what they were planning to do, and they asked for our opinions. And we basically at that point in time said, well, we would rather see a proposal from you regarding what it is that you're going to be basically considering relative to ownership and performance of the existing collection system. So the reason this is on your agenda is because there is an existing agreement we have with the county. And so the motion is written so that council basically reaffirms that the Rutherford County Town Lake Lure Sewer Agreement dated May the 5th, 1970, basically is what's a good word, William? That it's basically there to be honored and respected by all the parties as it was agreed to in 1970. So staff is recommending that council reaffirm the original agreement that was dated May 5th, 1970. I'll defer to William. He may have some additional information for you.
Right. So back in the last fall, I looked at the contract between the county and the town just for some historical reference. Back at that time, there was incorporated a sewer, Chimney Rock. I don't remember the exact name of it. It was Chimney Rock Sewer Association was incorporated, and they were trying to get a grant from the government. And the federal government required the county to be involved in it and to be a party to the agreement with Lake Lure for treatment of the sewage. And the plan back then, at least, was to transfer for the county to transfer ownership and to assign its rights and duties under the 1970 agreement with the town to that association. And at that time, back in 1971, there was a memo or letter from then town attorney Hollis Owens, warning the town not to sign off on such an assignment of the duties and responsibilities unless and until the town was presented with bylaws, duly adopted bylaws of the association, and a corporate seal, some things like that, sufficient to show the town that the association had teeth. You know, it could enforce the agreement, force its members to abide by the agreement, and there's no evidence that was ever done. It appears that this association just sort of faded into history, and of course, and the agreement continued to be honored. Essentially, the town still, throughout that whole time since then, has treated the sewage, and the county, at least, has done some things to in the way of maintenance on the line, sufficient to evidence that they don't question their ownership of it. Now in 91, I guess it was 1991. Yeah, 91, I guess Chimney Rock was incorporated, the village. And now they have sort of stepped into the shoes, fast forwarding 50 years, of what the association was supposed to do back then, or was envisioned that they would do. The agreement is, in my view, is still enforceable, still in place, despite the fact that it's been so long. Both parties have more or less still have abided by it and followed it. And significantly, as Shannon pointed out, there is the clause in there that the town has to sign off, has to approve of any future assignment by the county to originally the association, but now effectively it's the village. So I guess since it's been such a long passage of time, and also just to expressly make clear that that the town considers the agreement binding and effective up through this day. Just a motion to reaffirm that agreement. It's nothing that's required. It doesn't affect the enforceability of the agreement, but it's more of a way to expressly state that we consider that agreement valid, the town does, and that we expect it to be abided by. So we think a motion to reaffirm the agreement would give the town that ability to expressly state to the county, DEQ, whoever, that we consider that agreement valid and binding, and it continues to control the relationship between the town and the county with regards to the sewer line.
Okay, do I hear any questions? Anyone have any questions for Mr. Morgan? Is there any discussion on this?
Mr. Morgan, the intent tonight is to reaffirm this. You've said that. In line item number 6, it says that they will give us they will bear the expense to provide, install, and maintain a central meter. Do we have a record of what's happened since 1970 on that meter? And Chimney Rock State Park now has more than 260,000 visitors a year themselves, and that comes straight through our sewer system. And there hasn't been a ton of commercial development in Lake Lure, and Chimney Rock, but there's been a good bit. So it came to mind. That was all. It stuck out to me about that particular piece, but I don't know if it's irrelevant or not.
Shannon, you want to address that?
Sure. So the agreement is necessary, and it's the county's responsibility to install that. If the county chooses to reassign ownership of the collection system, the new owner certainly would also be responsible. So it would not be the town's responsibility to install that meter. That meter needs to be installed by either Rutherford County or the new owner, which in this case, it would be Chimney Rock Village. And then we would use that meter, and Chimney Rock Village knows and recognizes that the meter is something that needs to be installed so that we can understand clearly how much sewage is being sent to Lake Lure so that we can adjust rates appropriately.
Okay. As I understand it in other meetings before I joined council, there are discussions within the state that they purchase land for the purpose of sewer assessment for state park land, which is long after the 1970 date that's in this original agreement. So that it struck me as I was going through it. So
thank you for bringing that up. Are you satisfied with that response then, Patrick?
I am satisfied with that response. Yes, I am.
Right.
There's been a lot of changes since that time, and since 2009, there's also been a lot of changes as well, and the state is also involved with that particular piece of property in our region. So a new agreement may need to be founded if they want to continue using our sewer system for future uses. But that's, you know, that's some long-term goals for UAB and some others perhaps, but it struck me, that's all. So thank you.
I don't believe, and correct me, Ms. Murray, if I'm wrong, I don't believe that reaffirming this agreement is written precludes our redoing an agreement.
Is that right?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
There'll need to be a new agreement, but reaffirming this one is our way of stating, as of right now, it's still the agreement. Right. And significantly, it has in there the requirement that the town be required to agree to the transfer in terms of the transfer. And so this is a way of just a marker, if you will, that, hey, the town needs to be considered, and don't forget this clause in the 1970 agreement was still binding that the town has to have a place at the table making that decision whether it should be, you know, assigned or what the terms of the assignment should be. So does that pretty much sum it up, Shannon?
Yes.
So basically, this is just a vote of confidence in that agreement.
Okay.
I would say it a little bit different. It gives us leverage. We like the elements of that agreement. We don't want to let them go by the wayside. This forces the hand of the Chimney Rock Village to consider those in the new agreement because we like them. And so by reaffirming this, it gives us leverage, and that's really what we're looking for. That's why it's in the interest of the town.
We're just saying that just because it's 50 years old doesn't mean that it's not valid anymore.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Okay, so do I hear a motion then?
May I make the motion to adopt this recommended motion to reaffirm the Rutherford County Town Lake Lure Sewer Agreement dated May 5th, 1970, and thank everyone for their input, and I will make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I can second it.
All in favor?
Bryant, aye.
Uriel, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
Then the staff recommendation that the town council reaffirm the agreement as written is approved unanimously. We'll move on then to item number D, zoning and planning board member appointment, and we will go to Commissioner Moore.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Hinkle resigned from the board, and I can, you know, understand why his business is really booming now. He has a lot of work, and you know, he was a great member while he was there, but he just really doesn't have time for it anymore. And we had several applicants here, and I would like to recommend, I think they're all good applicants, but I would like to recommend Mac Hillebush. And if nobody objects, if anybody wants us to do the voting system that we have done before, where we each do a ballot, we can do that. Or if nobody objects, I would like to make a motion that we appoint Mac Hillebush to the Zoning and Planning Board.
Do I either hear any discussion or do I hear a second for that recommendation?
Commissioner Kilby, I'll second that recommendation for the purpose of discussion if there is any.
No discussion, Commissioner Bryant.
If anybody objects to doing it by motion, I'll withdraw my motion.
I guess I'm the last one, and I'm good with everything. We're good.
All righty then. All in favor then of accepting the recommendation of Mac Hillebush? to replace Jonathan Hinkle on the Zoning and Planning Board. Please vote using your name.
What the effective date will be? What's the effective date on that? Just so I understand. Is he leaving early from his December 2022 date?
Yeah, he has left. He has attended his last meeting. The last meeting was the last. John.
Okay. I understand. I will second the motion as it is presented. Then, Commissioner Bryant.
Oh, in favor?
No, I will say aye. Sorry.
Okay.
Diorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Moore, aye.
Then the council accepts the recommendation of the Zoning and Planning Board for the replacement of Jonathan Hinkle.
I want to thank everybody.
Yeah, well, let me say this: that was not a recommendation from the Zoning and Planning Board. They didn't make a recommendation. That was a recommendation from me.
Oh, well, all right. Then Commissioner Moore's recommendation, I adjust that.
Yeah. If anybody misunderstood that and has exception to it, we can address it now.
Sure.
Okay.
I think everybody's comfortable with that. If so, we'll move on to item E, which is our lake use survey discussion. Is Dean Gibbons here with us tonight, or Dana?
I am.
All right, wonderful.
Okay. Basically, the LAB had a discussion about wake surfing at their April 5th meeting. Now we're introducing a draft survey that upon approval would go out. I've got a few questions here I'd like to ask council today. We're just kind of seeking direction from town council and the Marine Commission regarding our next steps. And on your board request, if you'll see there's 4 questions that come up, and if you have more, we can definitely answer or ask those. But hang on one second. Need some glasses here. Okay. If you guys have seen the draft survey, one of the questions is right now is what, are there any changes that you see that need to be done to it? Number 2 would be, who all do you believe should receive this survey? The next thing is, do you want the LAB to review this survey? And what kind of dates are we looking at for getting this thing sent out and getting it returned?
Okay, are there any questions for Dean or observations? Any additional questions you want added?
If I may, Madam Mayor. So one of the things that came to mind for me with this is with or without a rope can be broad sweeping. You can cut a rope to any length you'd like. And that's in line item number 1, wakeboarding with a rope or wake surfing without. If we send it out to the general public, I don't know if some people would understand that. Tubing typically has a pretty standard moniker behind it for length and that sort of thing, and so does water skiing. But some of the new watercraft activities, they're so much more nuanced. And the only way to wake surf without a rope is to have a ballast and be within like 25 to 30 feet of the boat with enough wake for you to actually do it. And the general public definitely wouldn't know that. I don't know if they could answer the question effectively for us with the proper information, but perhaps I could be wrong. But wake surfing is not something that most people who aren't pretty active on the whole would understand what that would really look like. And I don't know if you don't have to have a ballast to wake surf, and that is also that's a hard spot to be in because it becomes a gray area. What is your opinion on giving specifications versus just leaving it generalized?
So are you suggesting, Commissioner Bryant, that we do maybe put in a description of what wake surfing is, so they'll better understand that?
Perhaps
be able to differentiate that?
Yes, because without a rope, you have to be within a very specific length behind the boat for it to actually work. And then you typically have to have enough wake for that to, be usable to enjoy enjoy that activity. Yeah, correct. Yes, ma'am.
So Dean, could we just put a description somewhere in there of both wakeboarding and wake surfing, so that so people would be able to determine the difference between the two?
Yes, ma'am. I've written that down as a note to adjust that and add in a better definition of wake surfing opposed to wakeboarding.
I happen to agree with Commissioner Bryant. I think a lot of people who don't participate in wake surfing would have no idea what you're talking about if you don't do that. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Dean, Commissioner Kilby here, I guess you could just in this, just do a short, description of what wakeboarding is, and do a short, description what wake surfing is, and that people will understand it if it's there for them to read.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing, because I've already seen discussion throughout the town. People are conflating the two; they're confusing the two all the time.
Yeah.
And I would say a large number of people would have no idea what wake surfing is, period. They probably know what wakeboarding is, but they wouldn't know. So I would be pretty specific, Dean, when you describe it.
Okay.
Yeah. They maybe won't even want to put a YouTube link on there. They can look at it and see what it is.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Okay, what about the question number 2? Does anybody have any comment or any additions or edits to that? Do you support any of the following? I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Once we explain to them what it is, we're just asking them if they support it.
Correct.
I tend to think that those are some leading questions. Like we're opening the door, limiting wake surfing, when I'm not so sure we want to do that. I think what we really need, just my thoughts, is that we really need a temperature reading on wake surfing in general. The limitations on wake surfing is a different question. And I think we're just confusing it if we open that door. I think we ought to go with, do you support wake surfing as described in this document in Lake Lure, period. And we leave it at that.
I agree. I think we're giving them too many choices.
Yeah. Sorry, Madam Mayor, go ahead.
Well, so I think you're going to get, your responses will be spread amongst all of them, and you won't really get an idea of what people are saying. Yeah. So I agree with Commissioner Diorio. Just up or down, yes or no, wake surfing or no wake surfing.
And
I think that's a good idea.
Yep, and because that is the specific issue. Number one is, do you want to allow wake surfing with ballast or without ballast, or wake surfing at all? Because tubing and water skiing have been allowed on this lake for forever, and so is stand-up paddleboarding. So I think there's a very specific issue that the LAB wants to tackle, and the less the more direct feedback you get from the public, the better assessment LAB can offer a final recommendation to us as council.
And I also don't think we should ever offer C, leaving things as they are, because there's kind of a general feeling amongst a lot of people here in Lake Lure that, a lot of things are changing. I wish it were the way it was, whatever. So I just think that opens that up to pick C because it sounds good.
For those, who have been here a long time, we have a lot of new people here, and the more direct we can be,
right,
the better. I do have a concern as a commissioner about how to reach all of these new people who are buying homes. and they're second home buyers and that sort of thing. How are we going to best address some of the things as this continues to evolve in our city limits? These people who they're buying homes with cash, and the real estate market is very incredible. And these people bought these homes because they have money in this market. And that's an issue for another time, but the more direct, the better is my answer. So,
are there any additional questions that anybody would like to see on this survey? Or are we just comfortable with, we'll explain to them what it is so they understand clearly what it is, and then do you think it should be allowed?
I think short and sweet is better. And there was a question on the prior screen that we were looking at here. I think it was a question from Dean to us about who the survey should be sent to. And I would say just use our list of voter registrations. That ought to cover everybody. I don't know of any houses on the lake that don't have at least one boat of some kind.
Good idea.
Okay. Okay, I've got that.
And what other questions did you have, Dean, for us?
The question 3 would be, do you want the LAB to review this survey?
Well, I think we'll just all get a copy of it when it's compiled, and when it comes back, we need to have a date for them to return it by. And I think it shouldn't be out there too far. People forget about it. Just, we send it out and give them a week or so to get back with us to return it, and put on here how they should return it, either scan it and email it or just use regular mail. I think it would be a good idea to have the surveys numbered, not so much that we could keep up with who is returning them, but so nobody sends in multiple surveys from one resident or from.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hey, Dean, on question number 2, just to give you a little bit of a better answer, I think it should say, do you support A, prohibiting wake surfing on Lake Lure, 2, allowing wake surfing on Lake Lure? Be very specific, and C, just a comment section. If people want to put in additional perspectives, let them write whatever they want to write, but they have to answer either A or B. I think that's the better way to go. Leaving things as they are is another open question, because people may not even know the way things are. So.
Right.
So either prohibiting or allowing, and comment. That's the way I would do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
One last one for me.
Okay.
The voter registration is very good, but there are a lot of vacation rentals in town, and we do have a list of the people who are authorized vacation rental homes, and those can sometimes be the cause for concern for residents who do live here full time. If we are authorized as the government entity to use those addresses of property owners that have that as their mailing address, that they register when they place their home under our registrar as a vacation rental, we could supplement this listing with those addresses plus the voter registration.
Okay.
I don't know the regulations behind it, but there are people who own homes here but do not vote here, and to reach our best use, it does cost us more money to send that stuff out to them. I understand that, but information is key. So,
yeah, I want to make sure I understood. Is the concern, Patrick, that just to make sure that every homeowner gets a copy of the survey?
Yes, correct. So you said voter registration, voter records, which is very good.
We said
no. I said the vote registration, not the voter.
I'm so sorry. Oh, understood.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
And those addresses should have it's the address that goes with the registration. So they probably go to wherever they live.
Wherever they
correct,
live.
Yeah, because that's required by their insurance company, so that makes total sense. My apologies for the.
If you don't have a boat, you really don't care what kind of surfing is done on the lake.
That's right.
Very true. Okay, boater. I'm sorry. Okay, BOAT. Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, any other questions on this for Dean, or any other discussion on this survey?
No.
Dean, thank you so much for doing this. This has been something we've been talking about for a long time. It looks like we're making some headway in getting some resolution to this problem.
Okay, I still got a couple of questions if I could.
Absolutely.
Okay, still, I don't think I've got, either I didn't hear it or don't got the answers. Do we want this to go to the LAB for review at their next meeting in May? I think it'll be May 3rd. Or do we want to send this out to them by email to look at? And then that would lead me into question 4 is, what is the timeline when you want this sent out and when you want it returned?
I don't think it needs any further review. I think we're the guys that are going to make the ultimate decision. Okay. Let's get it out there and get it back and share the information with the LAB and welcome their input. Yeah. But we're the ones that are charged with making this decision, and I think we need to just get on with it.
Dean, is it possible to send this out by email as opposed to mail? That would certainly be more efficient.
I think as far as the LAB and stuff goes, I would think so. I don't know what our ratio to email to mailing addresses that we have.
Okay.
So that'll be something that I will work with Miss Linda Ward on to find out what we have most available to be able to get these out to the most amount of people. I also would like to use Brian Kiley is the president of the Lakefront Homeowners Association, and I think he would be a nice source of information to making sure that we get those residents right.
Perfect. I agree with you on that. Any other questions, Dean, you have?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate this more than you know.
Well, thank you so much.
If there's no other discussion on that, then our next issue here is the Budget Amendment 305, the wastewater treatment plant digester, which we moved to new business.
It was withdrawn, Madam Mayor, so we're good.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that was a different issue, but okay.
Technically, you're right, Madam Mayor. It was a different issue, but those two were connected, and perfect. Since the other was withdrawn, that one would be withdrawn as well.
Perfect. All righty. Then in that case, we are going back into closed session. And this is the last item on our agenda for tonight, just to let anyone from the public who is joining us know that there will be no further business after this closed session, should you not want to remain in the thought there might be something else. So do I hear a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Mayor, I move that the Town Council go into closed session in accordance with GS 143 Tech 311.11 Alpha 3 for attorney-client privilege or legal claims, and with GS 143 313 Tech 11 Alpha 6 for the purpose of discussing personnel matters.
Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Bryant, second.
All in favor?
Commissioner Bryant, aye.
Yorio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
4 aye.
Then we will go into closed session. Michelle will give you a few moments to orchestrate that for us. Just let us know when you're ready.
Madam Mayor, may I request just a 5-minute recess to give her a second as well?
Absolutely, I think it's the perfect time.
Okay.
John, this is reminiscent of the old days, the town council meetings that go to midnight.
Yeah, we need to, that doesn't need to happen very often.
No. Hey, we've been pretty efficient, actually. We've been doing good. This one just kind of, you know, it is.
Yeah.
What it is. Just think if we didn't have
open session, having no other business today, we are going to recess until May the 11th at 5 p.m.
Can you get a motion for that?
Do I hear a motion to do that?
I move that we recess the town council meeting until May 11th at 5 p.m. at Town Hall.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that, Commissioner Bryant.
All in favor?
Bryant, aye.
Curio, aye.
Kilby, aye.
Or aye.
Then we are recessed until May the 11th at 5 p.m. at Town Hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Great job.